What is the best argument for the existence of God?
Well, this should be good. Hello friends, and any future alien overlords that may be watching. Today we're taking a small detour from the typical apologetic debunks that I usually do, and instead we're looking at a logical argument. One that smells a bit like an Immanuel Kant-inspired transcendental argument for God's existence. In fact, this is an argument that I've heard time and again. So often, in fact, that I felt like I should give a crack at explaining why it's so unconvincing. So stay tuned, dear viewers, for the ranting. It will be fierce.
Well, the best evidence for the existence of God is that without God, you couldn't prove that anything existed. You couldn't prove anything at all, in fact.
That's not evidence. That's an assertion. And the assertion that we can't know or prove anything without God is based on the presumption that a God dictates or predicates our ability to think logically. There is no evidence whatsoever to demonstrate that this is necessarily true. You could literally have said the name of any deity in the framework of this assertion, and it wouldn't have altered its meaning as long as said deity was presupposed to be the source of reasoning and logic. But if I've misunderstood the cornerstone of your argument, well, you may want to elaborate, Doctor.
You see, in order to prove things, we need laws of logic. What are laws of logic? Laws of logic are the chain of reasoning that we use, the correct chain of reasoning, to come to various conclusions from certain premises, certain givens.
The laws of logic you are referencing are conceptual statements about the way reality presents itself. These statements form the foundation of the way in which we process information. These laws include the law of identity, often represented as A equals A, meaning that what is. Second is the law of non-contradiction, which states that multiple statements can't be true at the same time if they contradict. An example would be A equals B and A equals not B. They can't both be true as they are mutually exclusive statements. Another such law of logic is the law of excluded middle, which proposes that a statement can be either true or its negation can be true. Not anything other. There is no third option. Combined, these ideas do form the building blocks upon which logic and reason stand. So I think we are in agreement there. But I have the feeling this will be the only thing on which we agree. Oh well.
And yet you see that these laws of logic would not make sense in an atheistic universe.
The existence of the laws of logic make perfect sense in an atheistic worldview, which I assume is what you mean when you say atheistic universe. The laws of logic act as axiomatic descriptions of reality. The law of non-contradiction, the law of identity, and the law of excluded middle were human creations, labels given to the patterns or principles observed in nature. Simply put, they describe what we observe to be true. This is no different than referring to the way in which gravity exerts force as the law of gravity. The reliability of the occurrence is the thing that makes it useful to think of as a law. And just as any naturally occurring law doesn't dictate the need for a deity, specific or otherwise, neither do the laws of logic. We have nothing to compare these laws to. There are no alternatives, as these laws are natural to our experience of this universe. And unfortunately, we have no universes beyond our own with which to draw comparison. Consequently, there is no way to argue design or purpose in regard to naturally occurring laws without being able to demonstrate what an instance of non-design would look like. These laws are no more proof of God than they are proof of not God.
Why would we have these laws at all without a lawgiver? Why would the universe feel compelled to obey laws of logic if there's no God who's upholding the universe?
Actually, the universe doesn't obey the laws of logic. The universe just is the way it is. Like, universe equals universe. And the way we have seen it to be, our description of it, is what the laws of logic describe. They're descriptive laws, not prescriptive. Calling it a law doesn't automatically invoke the need for a lawmaker. If we stopped calling things laws and just called them invariable occurrences, would that help?
You see, laws of logic in the Christian worldview make sense. They're a reflection of the way God thinks. And so we have these laws of logic that apply everywhere. They're universal. They don't change with time, and that makes sense because God, you see, upholds the entire universe everywhere, and God does not change with time. And so that is reflected in the way He thinks about things. And we can, in a sense, think like God, not completely, of course, but we can think in a way that is consistent with His nature because we are made in the image of God. And so we have access to these laws of logic by which we reason.
So you posit that these universal, unchanging laws of logic, or more specifically the principles they represent, must have been created by God. To which I would ask, who gave those laws of logic to God? Did he create them? In which case, wouldn't they be arbitrary? Or is he bound to conform to them, in which case he's not omnipotent and must have received them from somewhere? Which leads us to turtles all the way down. If the response to why logical absolutes exist is that they are an extension of God's nature, is that any more satisfactory an answer than the logical absolutes existing by way of just nature? If these laws appear natural to us, as humans, as they are evidenced everywhere, and the only real difference in the atheist perspective and yours is that atheists assert the laws are natural, and you assert that they are natural as an extension of God, why wouldn't the simpler explanation be the better? You know, Occam's razor. Among competing hypotheses, the one with the fewest assumptions should be selected. And God, my friend, is a big assumption.
The Bible tells us in Romans 1 that everyone knows in his heart of hearts the biblical God, because God has made himself manifest to everyone. God has shown himself to everyone in the creation, in our conscience, and so on. And so we don't have to go around and try to come up with some new argument. No, people already know God. That's not the problem. The problem is not that people don't have enough evidence for God's existence. The problem, according to Scripture, is that people suppress that truth in unrighteousness. That's what Romans 1 tells us. What is known of God is made manifest in them. God has showed it to them, and yet they suppress that truth in unrighteousness because they don't want to believe in a God who is rightly angry at them for their sin, for their rebellion against him.
Oh, so you don't have to prove God because God is, in your worldview, not an assumable, but a known variable. In fact, you say that everyone knows God, and that he has in fact revealed himself in every aspect of life. If that's true, and I'm not convinced very much that it is, then why go through the motions of even presenting this so-called argument? By your own proclamation, this is the best evidence for God's existence, which is absurd because at the most you could only hope to lead people to the train of logic that the conceptualized laws of logic originated in a non-specific deity, because anything other than being the source of these laws, which you didn't prove either, you can make no other claims about the properties of said deity. That's best case, but you didn't present the best case, and I'm not any more likely to accept your origin story for logical laws than that of any other religion. But then you go and suggest that anyone not subscribed to your preferred interpretation of reality are willfully denying the God they totally know exists, because he did such a wonderfully perfect job of making himself known. That's a dick move. If God was so perfect in his perfect creation of our perfect universe, and the laws that manifest in that universe are equally perfect and God made, then why not have an equally perfect logical law that makes belief in God guaranteed? Something like a self-evident God equals true, so that the only way to discriminate between heathens and the righteous would be whether or not they worship said God, which would, to me, be a much more efficient way of revealing oneself as the cosmic creator. And it would also be more in line with your scriptural assertion that we all know God and choose to worship or deny him. But whatever, your argument proves nothing, but asserts everything. Immanuel Kant would be disappointed. Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope this was at least marginally entertaining. If so, hit that thumbs up. I get one food pellet every time you do. And I'm hungry. So hungry. Hit me up if there's anything you'd like to see in the future, or if you have piles of money that you want to, donate. Thanks for watching. Have a science-tastic day.